Story 4. Tucked away on the edge of town, amidst a thicket of overgrown trees, stood an ancient and forgotten school, a testament to a bygone era. Its structure was dilapidated, with a facade that bore the scars of neglect, windows shattered, walls entwined with ivy, and moss clinging to its once proud surfaces. Local lore had whispered of this place since my childhood, tales handed down through generations that spoke of dark and tragic occurrences within its walls. Stories abounded of mysterious disappearances, unexplained deaths, and ghostly figures that roamed the hallways during the dead of night. Despite the ominous nature of these tales, or perhaps because of them, I was drawn irresistibly towards uncovering the truth hidden beneath the legends of the haunted school. On a particularly dark night, devoid of moonlight, I ventured toward this spectral institution. My only companions were my insatiable curiosity and a fiery sense of adventure. The air was heavy with the earthy aroma of damp foliage, and the distant sound of an owl's call resonated through the desolate courtyard, heightening the eerie atmosphere. As I neared the school, its silhouette emerged from the darkness, a stark, intimidating outline against the starlit sky. Crossing the threshold, a chill coursed through me, the kind that seemed to seep deep into my bones as the echo of my footsteps filled the cavernous silence of the entryway. Inside, darkness enveloped the space, lit only by the occasional shaft of moonlight that penetrated the broken panes above. My hands brushed against the cracked, cold walls as I walked, feeling almost as though I could touch the very essence of the building's tragic past. It felt as though unseen eyes were watching me. Whispers of the long departed murmured just beyond the reach of hearing. Compelled by an unknown force, I continued deeper into the heart of the derelict school. With each step, the oppressive darkness seemed to thicken, shadows flickering at the corners of my vision, as if the spirits of the school's tragic past were flitting about, just out of sight. My exploration led me to a hidden staircase, spiraling downward into the bowels of the building. With each descent, the air grew colder, the oppressive darkness tightening around me like a claustrophobic embrace. Reaching the bottom, I stepped into a large, shadowy chamber illuminated by an eerie half-light. Moonlight filtered through cracks above, casting bizarre patterns on the walls. It was here that I encountered the spirits of the forgotten school. Apparitions of those who had met their untimely ends within these walls appeared before me, their forms ethereal and their faces etched with sorrow. They spoke in hushed, mournful tones, recounting the calamities that had struck them, the agony of their untimely fates, and the perpetual torment of their ensnarement within the school's decaying confines. As they narrated their tragic tales, I sensed an even more sinister presence lurking in the deeper shadows, a malevolent entity that whispered promises of immense power and unimaginable wealth, seeking to tempt me further into the darkness. The desire to flee from this overwhelming darkness surged within me, but escape seemed impossible. Every turn only led me deeper into the labyrinth of haunted halls, each corner guarded by spectral figures whose glowing eyes bore into my very soul. The school's oppressive force seemed determined to consume me, its darkness tightening around me like a noose. But just as despair threatened to overwhelm me, a sliver of dawn pierced the gloom. The first light of day broke through the darkness, its rays like a beacon of hope. Summoning every ounce of resolve, I pushed through the suffocating shadows, each step fueled by the growing light of dawn. At the moment when the shadows felt inescapable, I stumbled upon a concealed passage and narrow tunnel that promised escape from this place of despair. With renewed vigor, I followed this path, the oppressive darkness receding as I moved towards the promise of light and freedom. Bursting forth from the tunnel's end, I emerged into the fresh air of dawn, the sun's warm rays dispelling the last vestiges of night. Standing at the boundary of the old school, now bathed in sunlight, I felt a profound sense of relief mixed with awe. I had confronted the horrors of the past, the spectral inhabitants of a cursed place, and had emerged not just unscathed but empowered by the experience. Though I left the haunted school behind, the lessons of that night remained with me. I had ventured into the heart of darkness and found that even in the most oppressive despair, there is light and hope, forces powerful enough to overcome the deepest of terrors. Story 5. In the silent hours of the night, when the world was enveloped in darkness and quietude, a distinct feeling crept over me, the eerie sense of being observed. It began as a mere tickling sensation at the nape of my neck and a creeping chill that I initially dismissed as a mere figment of my imagination. However, as the evenings progressed, this feeling intensified, becoming too tangible to overlook. Each night, as I settled into my bed, I became acutely aware of a presence hiding within the shadows of my room, its gaze heavy with malevolence. This was an unfamiliar and terrifying sensation, serving as a cold reminder that I was not alone. Despite my attempts to dismiss it as a trick of the mind, I couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister dwelled in the gloom, silently observing me with a malevolent hunger that was palpably chilling. I tried to convince myself it was all in my head, a result of stress or perhaps isolation. Yet deep within, I understood the reality. A malevolent entity lurked in the shadows, waiting, watching with bated breath, its focus intently fixed on me. The air around me seemed charged with a dark anticipation. Then, one dreadful night, compelled by a mix of fear and defiance, I peered out my window to confront whatever haunted me. The sight that met my eyes is one that will forever be etched in my memory. A shadowy figure stood outside, partially obscured yet distinctly ominous, with a smile so twisted it sent waves of terror crashing through me. This being's face embodied pure wickedness, twisted by hate and malice, its eyes alight with a zeal that seemed to cut straight to my soul. Gazing into that abyss of unfeeling eyes, I realized this was no ordinary adversary. It was an entity shrouded in darkness, far more sinister than any earthly creature. Frozen in terror, I attempted to scream for help, but my voice failed me. Paralyzed, I could only watch as the figure scrutinized me with a disturbing intensity. It seemed to thrive on my horror, drawing power from my fear, looming over me like a spectral harbinger of doom. As abruptly as it had appeared, the figure dissolved into the night, leaving me alone once again in the enveloping darkness. However, the terror lingered, a constant reminder of the malevolent stalker that now dominated my thoughts. I tried to convince myself it was merely a nightmare, a psychological manifestation brought on by stress or lack of sleep. But deep down, I knew I had encountered a phenomenon that defied logical explanation. With each passing night, the presence of this sinister stalker felt more oppressive, its vile grin permanently imprinted in my mind, a scar that refused to heal. Attempting to maintain normalcy in my day-to-day activities became increasingly difficult as the pervasive dread that I was being hunted never diminished. The entity seemed always a mere shadow behind me, poised to strike at any moment. In desperation, I reached out to friends and family, yearning for any comfort or support they might offer. However, their attempts to reassure me felt empty against the depth of my fear. They couldn't possibly comprehend the reality of the sinister force that stalked me from the shadows. Isolated by my terror, I felt trapped in a relentless nightmare with no apparent escape. Each evening renewed the intense dread of being watched by those hate-filled eyes. Despite this, I held on to a sliver of hope, a belief that somehow I could escape the clutches of this dark entity that seemed intent on consuming me. Though the path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty and shadowed by fear, I resolved not to succumb to despair. I clung to life and to the hope of deliverance, bolstered by the belief that as long as I could draw breath, there was a chance to overcome the darkness that sought to engulf me. This resolve became my beacon, guiding me through the darkness as I navigated the haunting reality of my existence, ever vigilant and determined to find a way out of the shadows that bound me. Amidst the torment of nightly hauntings, my daily existence became a struggle against the shadows. Every creak of the house, every flicker of a light bulb intensified my fear, as if the sinister stalker was manifesting itself through the very walls of my home. The days blurred into one another, each marked by a growing sense of dread as the sun dipped below the horizon, heralding another night of vigilance and terror. Determined to confront this nightmare, I began researching, poring over old texts and scouring the internet for any clue that might explain or counteract the malevolent presence. In ancient myths and supernatural lore, I found references to beings that fed on fear and could be bound or banished by specific rituals or talismans. Driven by desperation, I collected items that might hold some power: salt, iron, and sacred herbs, setting them around my room in a makeshift barrier. One evening, armed with a newfound resolve and a circle of protective symbols around my bed, I waited for the apparition's return. As the clock chimed midnight, the familiar chill crept up my spine. However, this time I was prepared. I had a candle lit, its flame casting elongated shadows against the walls, and as the figure materialized, its form somewhat obscured by the flickering light, I felt a spark of courage flare within me. With a steady voice, I confronted the shadow, speaking words of banishment I had learned from the texts. The room grew colder, the air thick with tension as the figure hesitated, its form wavering under the power of the spoken charms. For a moment, it seemed as though the darkness itself was listening, deciding whether to yield or to engulf me entirely. Story 6. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I found myself standing before an old, decrepit building. The exterior, once probably vibrant, was now a dull gray with paint flaking off in large patches, revealing the corroded metal underneath. A moment of hesitation gripped me as I absorbed the sight of this looming structure, its silhouette stark against the darkening sky. I had heard numerous warnings about this place, its reputation marred by tales of unexplained phenomena, lights that flickered without reason, eerie sounds echoing in empty halls, and chilling accounts of people vanishing into thin air. Yet the allure of discovering the secrets held within was irresistible, particularly the enigmatic elevator rumored to be the heart of these mysteries. With a mixture of trepidation and determination, I pushed open the heavy door and entered. Inside, the lobby was dimly lit by sporadic bursts of light from the flickering fluorescent bulbs overhead, casting strange, dancing shadows across the walls. An overwhelming sense of foreboding washed over me as I made my way to the elevator, every step intensified by the tingling sensation of unseen eyes watching me. Approaching the elevator, I was struck by its unusual appearance. The doors were crafted from tarnished brass, decorated with intricate, swirling patterns that seemed almost alive under the flickering lights. As I hesitantly pressed the button to summon the elevator, a cold draft whispered past, sending shivers down my spine. The elevator doors creaked open, revealing an interior that looked as if it hadn't seen a visitor in decades. The air inside was stale and musty, carrying a faint, unsettling metallic scent. Overcoming a surge of panic, I stepped inside, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and anticipation. As I pressed the button for my intended floor, a chill cut through me. Instead of ascending, the elevator lurched downwards, its movement unnaturally smooth as it descended deeper into the unknown depths of the building. In a panic, I repeatedly hit the button for my floor, but to no avail. The elevator continued its relentless descent into darkness. Reality seemed to distort around me, the walls of the elevator pulsing with an inexplicable, otherworldly energy. Then, abruptly, the elevator halted, and I stumbled back as the doors opened to reveal a horrifying vista. I found myself on the threshold of an immense, cavernous space that defied the laws of physics. The boundaries of the elevator had disappeared, leaving me standing in an infinite expanse of oppressive darkness. I could sense an ominous presence lurking in the shadows, watching me from just beyond the reach of sight. Desperate to escape, I reached for the button to close the doors, but they remained mockingly open. As panic overtook me, I realized my escape routes were cut off. I was trapped in a bizarre, surreal realm. At that moment, a voice whispered through the void, its tone chilling yet oddly welcoming. "Welcome," it said, echoing around me, "to the realm of the forgotten. Here, the lost souls of the world roam eternally." Paralyzed with fear, I tried to process my surroundings. This couldn't be just a nightmare. It felt all too real and far more sinister. The realization dawned on me that I had entered a realm where the normal rules of reality were twisted, a place of eternal darkness where escape was an illusion. As the enveloping darkness tightened its grip, a profound despair washed over me. It seemed I was destined to join the myriad of lost souls wandering this nightmarish expanse forever, forgotten by the world of the living. The voice continued, its whisper now a clear, resonant tone in the chilling silence. "You sought the truth of the unknown, and so you have found it," it said, a hint of sorrow in its timbre. "This is the price of curiosity, the boundary between worlds, where those who seek beyond the veil remain, caught between moments." Resigned to my fate, I realized that my curiosity had led me here, to a fate intertwined with the mysteries I had sought to unravel. As the last traces of light from the world I knew faded, I accepted my new reality. Here in the realm of the forgotten, amidst shadows and whispers, I would wander, another lost soul seeking solace in an endless night.